Thanks, everybody. Nice to be back. I decided to talk about cholesterol today because I do a lot of blood chemistry work, like Dawn said. I get some very chronic patients. I kind of deal a lot with autoimmune disease, so maybe that'll be something we could talk about at some point. Having said that, these people are coming in with these really nasty conditions, and we'll order some blood because we need to get to the bottom of it. And I would say 95% of the time their first question is, well, what was my cholesterol? Because that's what we've been taught. That's what we've been taught to believe is going to kill us. So my intention today is to talk about that concept a little bit. I want to kind of debunk some myths that are out there. Another doctor that I know considers things like this medical dogmas and lies. There's a lot of misinformation. So I want to talk about that. And I'm not here to rag on the pharmaceutical industry, per se. I'm here to be realistic about what it can do and what other options there are and what's not being talked about. For whatever reason there is. And just give you guys more tools to make better decisions. That's my goal. And it is loose like it's been all day, so if there are questions, just fire them away. Okay, let me work this machine. So, I'm going to just get out a couple basic statistics, because they are kind of important to know. Over 600,000 Americans die from heart disease each year, right? So it's by far the leading cause of death. Chances are most of us are going to die this way eventually, hopefully at a ripe old age, right? People are dying every 42 seconds, of heart-related issues. And it's costing us a tremendous amount of money. However you want to look at the politics behind medicine, this is a biggie. This is a big money sucker in not just medical costs, but in like loss of work and productivity and whatnot. Here's just a basic visual representation. We're doing all right, We're actually doing pretty good. So that's good. Obviously down here a lot of fried foods, perhaps. A lot of sweet tea. I don't know. But there you have it. And that's going back a little bit, but it's basically the same now. These are kind of common sense. We know what makes us ill and what doesn't, but these are some things that are kind of very classically associated. If you go to your doctor and talk about it, they're going to say these exact same things, and I'd agree. So I don't know who drinks wine and hamburgers and french fries, but why not? This is interesting to me. Okay. The percentage of adults over a certain age is just rising. The number of people are taking cholesterol-lowering medications. So if we were just do a little brain experiment here, we take a medication that's supposed to protect us from a certain outcome. We would expect that outcome to be proportionate to the number of medicines being taken, right? That would make sense. That's not the case. We're getting prescribed more and more and more of these medications, but the actual death rate is not going down. So this is just a medical doctor, professor of cardiology, who is a statin medication prescriber. He's saying, they're not going down. Right?
Treats the symptoms, not the cause.
And creates more symptoms, perhaps, but yes. So, I just looked up some basic statistics online. Crestor is the most commonly prescribed statin drug, but there's like half a dozen or more other statin drugs as well on top of that. And then just look at some of the numbers. I mean, this is per month.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty radical. This is per month.
Wow.
I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but if you just want to look at, just the financial aspect of what motivates companies and what motivates researchers, and that's a number that motivates.
Yeah.
So, as a scientist myself, I'm not just a left-wing liberal acupuncturist nut. As a
Not just.
Yeah, not just. As a scientist, I want to question everything. I really want to question it, and this number makes me concerned because money's flowing to the right people, the same people that okay the things that get published, that fund the studies. So we're in a sensitive time politically right now because with the current administration, there's this kind of backlash against science and all that stuff, and I'm very much in favor of climate science and all the rest of it, right? Having said that, science isn't where it really needs to be. We're still being given kind of a filtered version of it. Yeah, who's tugging the strings? I don't know, but that number tells me a lot. So what's the mainstream information, the take on this information? We take too little statin drugs, right from the CDC. We take too little.
Wow.
We're continuing to increase. Heart rate is not changing. Heart disease is not changing. So do we have a statin deficiency syndrome? I don't know. But I don't think so. Something's going wrong, right? But that also says a lot. If you combine that statement with the numbers we just saw, it loses its credibility in my
And
book.
where it's coming from. Wow.
But yeah, right.
So the CDC, I trust them.
Yeah, but who's
We have
paying
to.
them?
We have to trust, but there is a revolving door with CEOs and drug companies and these medical oversight committees, and it's not even a conspiracy theory because if you just look, it's there. It's like
Yeah.
blatant. So yeah, it's a complicated mess, and we just need to know the right things because we're being told to take these medications. Anybody with a cholesterol over 200 is like supposed to be on them.
No.
They're talking about putting it in water or something. That would never happen.
Oh my God, oh yeah, right.
I read something about that once. And, this is a little lengthy, but I think it's important to know. So this is right from a mainstream medical journal. So basically what they're saying is for every 10,000 people taking a statin drug, there's 300 or so patients that develop cataracts, above and beyond what's normal, right, for that group of people. So we're seeing these things pop up. 23 patients with acute kidney failure, right? That will lead you to dialysis, transplants, death, right? Liver dysfunction. The statins are known to elevate liver enzymes and stress a liver. So they usually test your liver before they give it to you and monitor you to make sure you're not going toxic. That's basically how a statin drug works. It kind of, in essence, makes the liver sick enough that it can't produce the same kind of cholesterol that it wants to, and therefore the numbers come down, everybody's happy and right. I wrote an article a long time ago called Treating the Lab Report, Not the Person, and that's basically what statins do, right? Makes everybody look good on paper. So it can lead to some pretty radical things like these muscle wasting diseases that are autoimmune. Those can be deadly. At the very basic level, just muscle fatigue, things like that can come on. As a little bit more to that, erectile dysfunction is up 10 times in young men taking the lowest dose. That's no picnic. And then what do you do for that?
Take
You take Viagra, right? Or Cialis, or one of those. This was a biggie, I think. So the statin use was correlated. Well, basically what this journal did is they did a meta data analysis of all types of labs done all over the world, and they compiled all this data together. So they didn't do any research of their own in the lab. They looked at all the research out there and found the common threads, right? So statin use was correlated with a greater incidence of severe coronary artery stenosis, hardening of the arteries. People taking statins have harder arteries, right? Which is gonna lead to heart disease. I mean, it's gonna be a blood pressure issue, it's gonna, it's an unhealthy vessel. They've also shown in that last little thing that the statin drug therapy does nothing to induce coronary calcium regression, meaning like a removal of the calcium deposits. So when you look at a plaque in the artery, we think of it as like a gooey cholesterol-y fat, right? Which is kind of how it's sold to us. Eat fat, get high cholesterol, and have heart disease. That's sort of the model. It's not true. It's actually, I had an opportunity to do an autopsy with a patient of mine who was a medical examiner. And so she let me get in and cut open the heart and do all this cool stuff. And we got to open up the coronary arteries, and it felt like hard shark skin.
Wow.
Have you ever felt a shark skin or ray or something? It wasn't gooey at all. And that hardness was calcium. They don't tell you to stop taking calcium. They tell you to stop eating fat, which is silly. But anyways, so the statin drugs don't help you reverse any of that. In fact, they seem to make it worse. So could we be missing something? There's something that we're not getting, because clearly we're all dying while taking lots and lots of medicine. This is what you're going to get. This is the standard lipid panel. It's a part of every panel that I do, just because the lab puts it on there, and it does tell me stuff. But what this does not tell you is, what does your mortality look like? If you look back, I didn't cite this statistic, but if you look at the CDC reports, about 50-50 people that are having heart attacks or strokes and dying have high cholesterol, the other half have normal or low. Makes no difference, right? But this is what you're judged on. That top one, that's what your life insurance is judged on. Right? So it's an outdated model, but if you're above 200, you pay a higher rate for life insurance. Even though, especially in women, specifically women, higher cholesterol equals longer life. The lower a woman's cholesterol gets, quicker she dies. Of all cause. All cause mortality, that's the key here. Statins will, yes, they'll lower your cholesterol, that's been shown over and
What
over
about
again.
if you have bad cholesterol more than 396?
We'll talk about it. Real quick, if you lower your cholesterol to a certain degree, you start dying of all-cause mortality issues, like falling off ladders, other things, cancers, and everything across the board goes up. That's what the studies don't take into consideration. So,
Why is that?
because cholesterol is a main component of our brain and nervous system. So, yeah, and all of our lipid membranes that make up every cell. It's a vital cellular structure. So if we're starting to lose it in our blood, we're going to start robbing it from our nervous system and our cells. Just like if we're low on minerals and calcium, we'll take it from our bones.
My doctor says I have high cholesterol, the bad kind, I guess.
Okay.
And he said
The
that
LDL?
that would affect my memory.
High LDL will affect your memory.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it. With respect to extremely high levels, I'll just go to this one real quick. That one right here, lipoprotein phenotyping profile. That would be a one for that person. There are genetic traits that will just have a person with soaring high cholesterol, and they live to be 110, no problem. Or you could have high cholesterol for other reasons, and it could be an issue. So finding out why that's really the case, it would be key, and then going forward that way. But these are just some special tests that can be ordered. I can order these. I honestly don't really order this one very often, just because you do kind of have to have numbers like that probably to do it. We're going to talk mostly about these three today. I feel like they're the most important, and they're easy to find. They're really easy to pick up on. We'll talk about the particle size. That's one of the most key concepts. And we'll talk about C-reactive protein, which is an inflammatory marker. We're going to talk about homocysteine, which is I'll call it the silent killer. Has nothing to do with cholesterol, completely different model. Will kill you tomorrow if it's high. If it's that way for long enough, right? Fibrinogen has to do with how you clot. So if you're clotting in your blood, and that's what generally tends to get us. Something breaks off and floats downstream, right? Lp(a). This is sort of a type of the bad cholesterols that is just very sticky in a sense. It really wants to attach and cause plaquing. We talked about the genetic concepts. If your sex hormones are out of whack, then that can just somehow trigger the body to start doing that. You can see cholesterol numbers go up. You can see particle sizes change. It's rampant, and I don't necessarily recommend everybody run out and go on hormone replacement therapy.
Right.
It's not really my model, but it is a model, and it is necessary at times. So that's something to consider. And infectious disease. So you can have gut infections that cause heart disease. So if you're having some of these silent infections going on that may not be symptomatic at all, well, that's something to know about. So these are all things that can be done.
These tests should also be done when you're having your thyroid tested. So many people get their thyroid
You
tested
bet.
for overweight.
I didn't
But
even
if you
know- I
don't
didn't
get
list
those
thyroid.
tested,
Yeah. And thyroid's a whole other model
you're
for
not
it.
really finding the true problem.
That's right.
So when you say an infectious disease testing, is that if somebody has leaky gut, is that what you're going to be?
Different, but a leaky gut person could also have, bacterial overgrowths or
Okay.
parasites or something leading to that.
Candida
But
stuff.
yeah, but if somebody has a leaky gut, meaning the barrier system of their intestines is not patent, right? It's porous, then that's a sign of systemic chronic inflammation, and that's driving heart disease.
How good is an infectious disease? Because I think there's like millions of possibilities that could be wrong.
Definitely. How good is testing for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can start with the heavy hitters. H. pylori and, some viruses, cytomegalovirus, things like that. Yeah, that are just known to actually populate the lining of these arteries. So, but honestly, to answer your question, any chronic infection can add inflammation to the system, which can drive the heart disease. Okay, so some of the basic factors involved. Metabolic syndrome, this is sort of your pre-diabetes state, or full-blown diabetes, of course. Inflammation, we kind of mentioned that. Hypertension, high blood pressure. You know, if the vessels are experiencing too much, and they're going to become unhealthy. I spoke on this a little bit during the brain seminar, where you're putting pressure on the inside of that vessel, which basically can kill that lining. And that's not just the inside of a tube. That's an endocrine organ in there. So you want that. I'm going to talk a bit about health of the vessel later, but hypertension is very destructive in the end. Obesity has a lot of things going against it, you know, with the basic physiology, but typically the more obese, the more inflamed. Increased clotting. This decreased NOS activity, think of it as circulation. We're going to talk a whole bit about that in a minute. Homocysteine and sex hormones. So yeah, we talked about it. So what is metabolic syndrome? I just wanted to cover it this is a whole talk. But very quickly, if you want to like, do I fit or do I not fit? You need to have 3 or more of those things. A functional range for a fasting blood sugar is 99. Typically, we want you below 99. But anything greater than 110, or certainly that, that's a biggie. Like if you have a 126, you probably already have those, but I would even call that a one thing that's enough, you know. You do not want a fasting blood sugar above that.
What do you mean by fasting blood sugar?
Like 12-hour not eating, yeah.
Before your blood is down.
Because if your blood sugars are up at that time frame, then the receptors that recognize the insulin aren't working anymore. Or you just are a type 1 and you just can't produce insulin and there's nowhere for it to go. Yeah.
Can you have metabolic syndrome if you have low blood pressure?
Sure. Yeah. Any of these 3, and it's still a little blurry, you know. It really honestly becomes more of the call of the practitioner at the time, whether they want to call it that or not. Okay, so hyperinsulinemia just means elevated insulin level. So blood sugar and insulin go together. Has a direct relationship to blood pressure. So the higher these blood sugar insulin levels, generally your blood pressure tends to go up. You'll tend to clot more easily. This HMG-CoA reductase enzymes, these are what your liver uses to create cholesterol and put it out in the blood. This is what the statin drugs work on. They block those. But unfortunately, these do other things besides make cholesterol. There's a whole cascade of events that you just blocked, you know, because of that medication.
I know a guy that replaced the statin drugs with niacin, and he said he got better results.
Yeah, I have a little thing on that in a little bit. Yeah, that's a great point. It is the #1 pick. And it's not necessarily going to work for everybody, but it is, yeah. It lowers the good cholesterol, HDL, and it's been shown to promote inflammatory activity in the blood vessels and elsewhere. So there's these little things called AGEs and RAGEs. Advanced glycosylated end products, glycosylated sugar. So sugary things floating around in the blood, right? And then the RAGEs are receptors for that. So the receptors are on the blood vessel wall, and then these sugars float by, and now they stick. And now you have something that was once a nice smooth slippery surface is now is a rough surface that catches stuff. So if the more blood sugar you have, the more inflamed your vessels get, and the more sticky they get, and the more plaques they develop. And blood only goes in one direction, right? So you can imagine that constant shear force, just like, you know, eventually that thing's just gonna go, right? And then you have your incident. So honestly, I've said this before, if I did one thing, if I just fixed people's blood sugar, if I just had a Jim's blood sugar clinic, like the majority of the problems would get better. I don't care if we're talking about depression or thyroid issues, you know, whatever. It's a major, major driving hub of functional medicine. Yeah.
From whatever you're saying about the statins and the situation we have in this country with the pharmaceutical, et cetera, what's going on in Europe or Canada as far as the same demographic and stuff?
It's a really good question. I don't know specifically, although they're pretty powerful over there too.
Similar situation?
Yeah, similar. Although I from the Europeans and Canadians, I know that they are a little bit more open to the alternative side of things as well. Yeah.
How does brain work?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Getting there.
I don't want you to absorb this. This is just from a little workbook that I had. I thought it was cool. This is what happens when your blood sugar's out. You know, a lot of things.
Nice.
You know, pathways directly lead to hypertension.
Sorry.
Pathways lead directly to clotting and coagulation issues. This is your inflammatory products. See, there's your glycosylated end products, right? They kill nerves. They kill kidneys. Diabetics tend to have kidney failure, right? Because you're basically putting sharp, think of like sugar as like little crystals kind of trying to squeeze through tissues, right? Kidney's very, very delicate, so you can tear that up. You know, your inside of your vessels get damaged. You work on your leaky gut, all right? It's gonna make that happen. You're gonna make triglycerides, it'll give you a fatty liver, basically give you a sclerotic liver over time. You're gonna be making less neurotransmitters because your brain is not getting the things it needs. This is like gout, you know, that kind of stuff can also happen. But inflammation is probably one of the most important things. And the blood sugar concept does tie in very closely to inflammation. I just say inflammation, it's a mighty big word, because we think of it as like, oh, my joints, they hurt, you know, which is true. They do sometimes. And they are inflamed. But that's the kind we feel. That's the kind you're lucky to have in a lot of ways, because you know there's an issue. But it's the silent stuff that gets us. And an artery or any blood vessel does not have nerve endings inside of it. So it can be fully inflamed and you can't feel it. There's no symptoms for an inflamed artery. The first symptom is usually your cardiac incident, right? Is an ER visit, or worse. So an inflamed artery is a sticky artery. You have to think of it like that. Right? The less inflammation, the less sticky it will be. Cholesterol is attracted to that. You know, I want to make a small correction. The cholesterol particles are attached to that. I'll get into that in a minute. But cholesterol is basically sent to these tissues to protect them. When you have a plaque, it's because that tissue is damaged and it needs a Band-Aid. So don't blame the cholesterol, you know, blame the inflammation, right? Blocking the production of cholesterol might lower your numbers, but it still needs to send stuff over there to protect that raw lining. So we have to get at that, right? Again, that is getting back to let's treat the symptom or let's treat the lab report. So even people with very low cholesterol, and I've seen it, have plaquing in their arteries.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, as a quick aside, which I didn't write about, but the whole cholesterol concept got started in like the 70s and 80s based on a since then proven wrong study. All right, what they did is they took rabbits and they injected a cholesterol solution into the rabbits, and what do you know? They developed heart disease. So they said, okay, it's got to be the cholesterol. Cut cholesterol. Start eating margarine. Right.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
That's a different story.
But what they've done since then is they separated the cholesterol from the solution that the cholesterol was dissolved in and injected the rabbits separately. And even though rabbits aren't supposed to be eating cholesterol, they did just fine. It was the solution that they injected into the rabbits that irritated the arteries that made the plaquing happen. So that's what's driving $5.9 billion a month in just that one drug.
Rabbit.
And dead rabbits. Okay, so how do we test for that? This is a really basic test. It's this CRP, it's high sensitivity. Otherwise, it's called like a cardiac CRP. This is a protein that's made in the liver. It's I consider it like a red warning light. It's not, as far as we know, it doesn't damage tissues itself. But if it's up, that means that there's inflammation going on. And if somebody has a healthy liver, I can definitely trust it. You know, if somebody has a sick liver and their CRP is low, I don't trust it. The liver can't make it. It doesn't mean it's not there. So this is a really cheap, easy to find test. Even a lot of doctors will order it. I do on every blood test because I want to know. I want to know, are you silently inflamed? That's what gets you. Functional range is below 1. Me, I'll share mine. 0.18. Pretty good. I'm doing something right. You know, my arteries aren't inflamed. Now, I have a 265 cholesterol. It happened when I turned 40. I don't know why. All the men in my family, 250 and above usually. All the older guys, 70 plus, no plaquing. None. So I'm not that
What's your
worried.
good cholesterol? What's that?
My good cholesterol, last time I checked, was about 65. We like it above 55, yeah. But anyways, you know, luckily I got my health insurance locked in, or my life insurance, you know, because they would give me a crappier rating. Anything above 3, though, the doctors start to worry. And I see this at 12, 14, you know, yeah, these are very thin people. This is one thing that can do it. There's a lot of things that will inflame an artery, like the blood sugar, like we talked about. But homocysteine, I call it the silent killer because, again, there's no symptoms for a high homocysteine. They'll just have an event eventually. It never gets tested for, hardly ever. I can order it with LabCorp, mainstream lab, but it's just not part of a mainstream workup. The reason being is there's no drug that treats it.
Yep.
So unfortunately, the doctors, bless their hearts, they were trained in an institution that's very pharmaceutical driven, and they have their bag of tricks, which can be important and life-saving, but it is their bag, and that's it. And sometimes it's a small bag. The things that get this down are not medications, but something called methylation, methyl support. I just said a methyl B12 for one example. It's just a little carbon that pops off from one thing and it attaches onto homocysteine in this case, and then it changes it to the next thing, which is not harmful. So there's a huge genetic component to methylation. Whole other talk. But it's a $25 test if you just do it by itself. It's part of my main panel. If I ever do like a full blood workup, it's just included in there. Everybody should get that done at least once, I think, to get a baseline. Anything above 15, the doctors, if they choose to look for it, are concerned about it. You know, they know that after 15, you are at a high risk for vascular disease. But the functional neurologists, the people that study brains from more of a natural perspective, know that anything above 7 starts to nuke brain cells. And so that's an aside. That's not heart disease. That's neurological damage. I probably talked about that in my last talk a little bit too. You don't want high homocysteine. All right. Oh yeah. Yeah, this one. Sorry, I was looking at 2 slides. Yeah, this is where I talk about the neurological issue. So that's not all, right? It causes direct death of brain cells. Also all nerve cells, not just brain. This occurs way before 15. So on my little thing here, it shows that, you know, you're creeping along with your homocysteine levels, right? This looks at the amount of brain cells that are dying at any particular point. So you're looking, doom, it starts to go up. You know, you're after about 12, and you're up. You know, and you're just frying brain cells. So this was done on brain atrophy of non-demented people, right? If you have dementia, you know, your brain is rapidly dying off. You know, so these are what, you know, they'd call elderly. I don't remember the exact number for that, but
Right.
yeah.
It changes every year.
But normal, right? Yeah. So this person is not going to be non-demented for long.
Is this
If you give it
general
5 or
brain
6
cells,
years, you know.
or they specific to some quadrant or whatever, when you see brain cells dying? Generally?
General volume
That's
of blood.
very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So they'll look at an MRI and they'll just measure the whole sucker. Yeah. Guess what? Medications start to elevate homocysteine because they chew up methylation support. Like if you're taking methyl support, or if you're not taking it, if you're relying on your diet to provide it, and you're taking some of these medications, you're going to be going through that a lot faster. So homocysteine levels start to climb. So you have a statin drug, not all, but some have shown to do it, because you're trying to protect your heart, and nobody's testing you for homocysteine, and it's starting to creep up. What have you done? What did that MD do?
Is lithium on the list?
I don't know lithium to be on the list. I don't know.
Does that
Google it.
hormone replacement therapy, is that all kinds? Like
Every
I
kind.
have bioidentical
Yep,
hormone replacement?
synthetic or bioidentical.
Oh,
And it's not
awesome.
that you shouldn't take those things,
Right.
but you should take the countermeasure.
Well, I also take Methylguard Plus.
You're probably doing fine. But order a homocysteine and see what you look like. Because if you're doing that and you're still high, then you just need to take more methyl support. If you choose to stay on the hormones.
How do you get methyl support? It's a supplement?
Formulas, yeah, I use one that's called Super Methyl SP, and it's just rich with all types of methyl donors. So it's got the methylcobalamin, which is the B12, it's got trimethylglycine, and several others that are just rich in methyl donors.
Don't statins also harm muscle cells?
Yeah,
And how does CoQ10
yeah, that's the
avert
link.
that?
So statins have been shown to deplete you of CoQ10, which is just a little coenzyme that the cells use for their workings, especially muscle cells and interestingly heart cells, quite a bit. So if you're depleting yourself of CoQ10, then the muscle can't function correctly. So they end up with atrophy or arrhythmias or just breakdown or death of the muscle, right? Yeah. I even heard a cardiologist at UCSD talk about that very same thing. They were talking about the necessity for taking CoQ10 with their statin drugs. And believe it or not, there's even a patent that's held out there that's a combo statin CoQ10.
Oh,
But they haven't been ready to release it yet because in doing so they have to publicly admit that it's necessary.
ah.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
they
by-
know about
Is
it.
that by Amgen?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So with cholesterol, size does matter, right? It's not how much is on the basic lipid panel, right? It's how they're packaged. That's also what's not getting tested for because guess what? No medication changes the way they're packaged. This is what that looks like. So the biggest misconception, this is the crux to my title, I suppose. The cholesterol misconception is that HDL is good cholesterol and LDL is bad cholesterol. They're not cholesterol. They're just not. They're two separate things.
The ratio of the two.
Cholesterol is this stuff inside. This is the LDL, or the HDL. you know.
Yeah.
They're carrying bubbles. They're little bubbles that carry cholesterol in a certain direction. And so we would call HDL good because it takes the cholesterol and all the stuff from the peripheral tissues where it's been delivered and brings it back to the liver and it's reprocessed. And then it's sent back out. And it's sent back out in LDL particles. So LDLs are considered bad because they go from the liver and then they go outward and where they can get lodged. So you don't want too high of LDL numbers. But again, it's not what's inside that matters. It's the particle. And what's the size of the particle? The larger the particle, this is my little sidewalk analogy. The larger the particle, the less it tends to get stuck. The little small bitty ones get stuck, right? And I use the sidewalk analogy because this is an artery that has low inflammation. This is a 0.18, CRP. Low vascular inflammation, not sticky. You can take a ball, you can roll it right across there, right? A cholesterol particle. This, rather drastic image, of course, but you get the idea. If we had a big enough ball, we could still probably, it might jump over that thing. But if we had a handful of mall rolls or golf balls, they're going to get stuck in every crack, and there's your plaque. And then they'll accumulate, and then they'll oxidize, and then they'll rupture, and then you'll have a heart attack. So we don't want that. A $7 or $8 test for the CRP or whatever it is will tell you which one you have.
Is that how much it is?
Yeah, it's not much. Yeah. Maybe if that's all you're going for, you have to get the $7 for the
$10.
puncture. Yeah. So, but under $20, you can find out what your sidewalks look like.
Internal side.
Yeah. And this kind of describes what I was just saying. So again, this is sort of the cholesterol package within a particle. But what size particle do you have? These are 4 different people. Okay, these little groups of things. They all have a high LDL, what a doctor would consider high, of 125. You like it below 100 or something like that, right? Theoretically, that's the range. Now, this person has relatively few large, buoyant particles. All right, and let's just say they're half full of cholesterol. And if you crack it open and dump it out, and you throw away the shell, and then that's your 125 inside, right? This person has more, but they're still big, and they're more empty, and you crack those two open, you have the same exact pile, right? So the same thing for all these people. These start getting smaller, and these ones, and they're kind of full, and these ones, there's a lot of small ones, and they're kind of empty. So even theoretically, you could have this person with a 75, and like everybody's jumping for joy, right? This person's going to die tomorrow, potentially, right? Because it's not what's inside the particle that matters. It's how big the particle is and how sticky your sidewalks are, right?
Got it.
It's not tested for.
Well, you can be tested.
We
You
can
know
test
what
for
you're
it.
looking for.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Ah, she's learning.
So this is a little example. This is not a real person. This is just an example the lab sent to me. But this is what it looks like when I test it. Right? I want to know kind of what particle sizes you have. And so you have these are more of like your large buoyant LDLs, right? And these are your more dense LDLs. These are the ones that are dangerous, right? And then your HDLs over here. So this black line is roughly what we want you to look like, and this is what this person looks like. So we see that their dense LDLs are much more prolific. So that's a danger. it's a bad one to have. And then these particles break down like everything else. right, in our body. And so you might get little teeny fragments of these lipoproteins that don't even carry cholesterol. They're just little chunks, right? That's these. This definitely never gets tested. But these are exceedingly small. So if you have a high RLP, it means you're usually inflamed, you're oxidative, you're not getting enough antioxidants perhaps, I don't know, but this is also a silent killer. So, if you order a good panel, and with most insurance companies, I can do this for like $45. It's really, really cost effective. You get a hell of a lot more information about what does the rest of my life look like. Do I need to be worried, or should I just be happy with what my doctor says? I don't know. So what's been shown to help? I like this little thing. There's more to this story, but I found this to be a kind of a nice comprehensive little list. If you're looking at things like dense LDLs, right? The two hearts work the best. The research has shown the things that have two hearts on here are the most heart protective, right? Niacin, #1 pick. Niacin's good for triglycerides, buoyant LDLs, Lp(a), that one little thing I mentioned at the beginning. It's good for increasing your good cholesterol, your HDLs, the kind you want. Because again, those scrub away things and they repackage them and bring them back. So niacin really is the #1 pick. Vitamin, it's natural. This one can give you flushing. People get that feeling that, you can take it before bed and kind of avoid that. There's slow release that might work okay for you.
Flashing like a minor hot flash?
Yeah, you feel it here.
And it's like almost like an itchy. It's like you feel
Can
like.
be. And you can actually get red.
Are there niacins that are better, like that aren't as itchy and
It's individual, and I know people are really sensitive and just can't take it.
yeah, I'm sensitive.
Yeah, so I would just recommend a slow release,
Okay.
and maybe a smaller dose and build up,
Right.
and to see what you can tolerate. Things like, diet and lifestyle. Everybody always tells you to do that. Of course you should, of course, for lots of reasons. But what does it really show to help with? Good ones. It really helps boost your HDLs, and to some degree the other stuff too. You can't disregard the single heart health thing. It's important too. Estrogen's protective, but I don't want estrogen. It's not protective for me, but for women for sure. Fish oils. Those interestingly enough don't really mess with particle size too much. But what they do is they lower your triglycerides, which is an independent factor as well. So if you want to lower your triglycerides quick, you exercise a lot, and you take fish oils a lot. If you have a really high triglyceride, you just pound it for a while, get it down. They also help with those little remnant lipoproteins, again, because that's more of an oxidative stress kind of a thing. It's something that's irritating inside your body, and that helps calm the inflammation down that's destroying those particles. So fish oils and niacin. And exercise. Statins, statins, what are they good at? That's a good point. Statins are really good at lowering LDL, which will change your numbers, but guess what kind? The big buoyant kind that doesn't hurt anybody. So again, what do we do? Yeah. So take it if you want, but take the countermeasure of CoQ10, and don't forget all the rest of these things. And it's really, really important. We're doing on time. Okay? All right. So inflamed blood vessels, the nitric oxide connection. Anybody heard of nitric oxide?
Yes. So that makes you.
Not nitrous. Not the stuff they carry on balloons at dead shows.
Yeah.
Okay. Nitric oxide, it's a blood gas, and it's utilized by different enzymes in different tissues. Okay, so we have three different types of, called isomers, three different types of little enzymes that do different things with nitric oxide that are directly important for this type of issue. They play both good and bad roles, so we want the proper balance of them. This was such an important molecule that it was named Molecule of the Year in 1992. Very prestigious. Yeah.
Was it in Time magazine?
It must have been. On the cover. You didn't see it? I was in high school then, I don't remember. So here's the three nitric oxide isomers, and I did talk about this in the brain talk as well, because it's really important for brain health. You have your nNOS, neuronal, right? So it's going to help with all the neurons and everything, how the way our brain works and our nerves communicate with each other, and how those synapses work. But in this case, it's going to modulate things like blood pressure. because the blood vessels they're innervated, you know, they're controlled by the brain. So if you can't control your blood pressure, or your blood vessel dilation, you can't control your blood pressure, you know the issue. ENOS stands for endothelial, that's the inner lining, that's that the inside membrane. That's not just a membrane, it's an organ, it's a gland actually. This really helps you dilate. You know, you want to have nice, open blood flow for lots of reasons, right? But it also has been shown to dissolve arterial plaque. So if you have plaque, then you could be on some kind of nitric oxide support. It'll help dilate the artery, it'll help dissolve the plaque. And then INOS stands for inducible. Think of it as inflammatory, I for inflammatory, that works. They promote vascular inflammation and development of the plaque. So if your arteries are inflamed, it will plaque, like I've been saying, right? So ideally you want these two up and that one down.
Is there an L-arginine connection here?
What?
L-arginine?
L-arginine?
Yeah.
Yes there is. L-arginine will turn all of them up. So people take L-arginine a lot, like athletes or bodybuilders or
Bodybuilders.
something like that. And even just like the Viagra class of drugs, they can have that kind of effect, so people might do it for that. And also Viagra and Cialis also turn them all up. So that's good, you're riding these things, but you're also potentially turning up that one. So if you're one of those people that already has this inflammatory pathway, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend that one. There's other better alternatives.
Do you test for these levels?
No, there aren't any good tests for that. We kind of just have to trust the research about that. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's stuff that happens in like the research world, and it doesn't get down to us clinically. But you can look at correlations of things. You know that like certain diseases, for example, will have certain presentations that we can know about. Okay. And this is just a little description. You know, basic nitric oxide. If you're eating a standard American diet like that, little hamburgers and French fries and too much wine, I guess, I don't know, and cigarettes, you're going to become inflamed. You're going to have high levels of inflammation, cytokines. You're going to activate that INOS, inflammatory, right? You're going to have vascular destruction in the end. You're also going to not be exercising. You're not going to be circulating through the blood in the vessels. You're not going to be opening them. Actually, exercise has been shown to really radically turn up ENOS. So that's one reason why they say exercise is good for your heart. It's actually increasing naturally ENOS activity.
Cardio kind of exercise?
Yeah. And specifically with this, high intensity bursts. Yeah, you can do it. Poor circulation. So if you have low ENOS, you have the plaquing, you have poor vessel control, poor circulation, and hypertension. Not good. That's the same slide. All right. So how do you get it up? I just mentioned it. Exercise, get your blood moving. I don't care how you do it. Not at first. I mean, if you want to get really specific, I think high intensity interval training in this kind of situation is good. Do it to the point, maybe you're doing push-ups and your heart's starting to go and you're like, oh, I can't do the next one, and do one more. That, right? Or if you're, barring injury, right? If you overtrain, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, but that kind of concept.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
I think what you said is great. High intensity, isn't there some magic that happened in the last few years where like 30 seconds of high intensities, 15 seconds, like within 10 minutes, you can have some really long-lasting effects?
Yeah, it
without
sets in
doing
motion
marathons or
a
anything?
whole cascade of very beneficial physiology. Yes, depends on what you're looking for.
And you can pretty much do that with whatever exercise you're doing.
I think for the sake of this, yes. Yeah, because a lot of people aren't.
I mean, you could do it
Doing any
on
of those
you could do
things.
it on an elliptical machine.
Sure.
You know?
But really push it. Add some
Yeah.
resistance to it. If
Yeah.
you're one of those people that's at the gym and you're watching Oprah or something,
Reading.
or whatever, a cooking show, and you're just keeping a nice steady burn for
Not
60
gonna do
minutes,
it.
it's not gonna probably do it as much. Not that part. Better than nothing because you are circulating blood and that's great, but you can boost it. But you know, if you really are having some cardiovascular conditions already, or you just want to be really rock star preventative, you take things. And instead of arginine, I like this one. Nitric Balance. I haven't felt anything quite like it. This is palpable. You will feel a difference in the room after taking it. And I'm very sensitive to it, so I take like a quarter of the recommended dose, and that's plenty for me. Things like vinpocetine and huperzine A, and these things have just been shown in the literature just to really protect and open up cerebral blood flow and all kinds of circulatory function. But what it does is reverse the NOS enzyme situation. It increases eNOS, it increases nNOS, and it lowers iNOS. Unlike arginine.
What's in it?
ATP's in it.
Okay.
A type of this is a niacin, basically.
A lot of statins are in it.
Just
Wait a minute, what am I writing it down?
a little methamphetamine. No.
Oh, no wonder you feel so high.
Yeah, that's the room
You
change.
have,
get a lab done.
you have some acetylcholine support. This
Okay.
acetylcarnitine is a very, it's a
It is good stuff. I do shots of it.
yeah, no joke. These are just all very like acetylcholine, brain protective, because it is meant a lot for brain stuff, and these are very much vascular protectants and things you don't just get enough of in your food necessarily. This is really where the nutraceutical concept comes in.
You do feel that stuff right away. The minute that you take that stuff, you feel it for minutes.
And if you take too much, it's
And it's
safe.
not illegal.
It's not dangerous to take it, but if you take too much,
It will
you might
be.
get
It will
uncomfortable. So for me, I get a little bit kind of like dizzy for about 20 minutes if I take too much. So I found my dose,
What is your dose? Just curious.
like an eighth of a teaspoon. And they'll say like eighth to a quarter. I just kind of look at it and squirt it in.
Where do you
They'll
get
say
that?
1 to 3 teaspoons a
And
day.
you're becoming an
From me,
Oh,
or from a practitioner. This is
Okay.
practitioner only stuff.
What's the name of the company? Is it?
Apex.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. I remember that.
I just like this line. I've known them. I've taught for them. I don't currently teach for them, but good stuff. Very clean. They know they're dealing with a sensitive population.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're on par with Zymogen and Orthomolecular and a lot of them. I mean, they're just another good company.
Besides getting it from here, is it available like at, GNC, Sprouts?
No. You can find all these things online.
Online.
Having said that, the companies themselves are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to not let you get them online.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of counterfeiting.
All right.
It's not that I want to sell you my bottle. It's nice, but that's not my goal. It's just that if you buy it from us, then we know when it was shipped, we know where it's been stored, we can track it by lot number. Yeah, there's accountability there. Okay, we're getting to the end, you guys, I promise. So an oxidized plaque is an unstable plaque. This leads me into the very last section here. So I mentioned this a little earlier, but arterial plaque isn't that gooey stuff necessarily. It has the calcium, like I mentioned, but it's comprised primarily of oxidized, kind of rancidified, right? Omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids. These are your vegetable oils that are supposed to be heart healthy. They're not, in my opinion. And oxidized small, dense lipoproteins. Right? That's primarily what we're looking at, not the cholesterol inside them, as much as the actual thing. So these will promote more inflammation in the lining. They'll attract white blood cells, which will infiltrate into the tissue, causing an inflammatory effect locally. All right, swelling the tissue more, making it more of a plug. All right, these things become oxidized because we're eating a bunch of garbage all day and smoking, right? And eating McDonald's French fries. And that's what destabilizes. There's something that called a foam cell that develops, and it basically just it starts to weaken the plaque and destabilize it, and then it breaks free, and there you go, right? So one thing to do, get your antioxidants in. I think we're speaking to the choir here, but this is just a short list. But eat this way. It's easy and it's delicious, right? Yeah. But essential fatty acid balance is really, really key. The omega-3 fatty acids are what we need more of, really. The EPA and DHA really are the most we think of. They're found primarily in the oilier fish, the picture next time, sardines, the things we don't eat because they're yucky tasting or whatever, I don't know. But eat them, they're good for you. They also tend to not attract a lot of the heavy metals like a larger fish would do. So if you're gonna have a fish, eat some mackerels or something like that. They have anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, they have anti-thrombotic, means like clot forming, they're going to be protective against clots. And they can lower triglycerides. Omega-6 fatty acids, though essential to us, we need them to live, they are more inflammatory. They're pro-inflammatory. We need inflammation in our lives, otherwise we'd be dead. We couldn't fight disease, we couldn't repair tissues. It's important to have inflammatory responses, but we don't want too much. So the typical American diet, I'm gonna jump here, is like, this is a conservative number. The omega-6 to 3 is like a 10 to 1. Because even the meat that we're eating, and normally omega-6s come from like, grains and, corn, that kind of stuff, soybeans, that kind of stuff. But we feed all that to our cows, our chickens and our pigs. So unless you have a lot of money and you can afford grass-fed meats all the time, you're getting an omega-6 saturated meat. So even if you're trying to avoid some of these high omega-6 foods and you're still eating the meat, then you're getting that. A lot of people will say, don't eat meat because it's inflammatory. I struggle with that, personally. I believe it can be, and I think a lot of it's because the meat we're getting fed. So I don't know. But the idea is to make sure you're getting in the omega-3s. That's really important. So if you're going to supplement, don't waste your money on the 3, 6, 9 combo, in my opinion. We're getting enough of the 6 and 9s already. Just flood yourself with the 3s. In the form of a good old-fashioned fish oil, in my opinion. You got it.
Good old-fashioned fish oil from cold waters, right?
Yeah. And again, they usually come from those little teeny oily fish. Yeah. I usually use a company, Orthomolecular. We do stock them here. I have some if you ever care to get some. I like that company a lot. They're on par with all the others, but I got a lot of respect for them after the Fukushima event happened. They had another supplement that was, that had a bonito fish protein in it, and which worked great for hypertension. But they found radioactivity in the fish, and so they just pulled it immediately.
Those pesky radioactives.
Yeah. So these fish are sourced from the whole other side of the world, very screened. The company got a lot of credibility in my eyes when they did that. This is one of the last little things I want to show. This is a patient who came in, just look at this one first, who came in, and a part of that $45 test, if you have, most insurance companies will do it, it involves this omega score, this omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid score. So you're getting all those particle sizes with that fancy little graph thing I showed you, but you're also getting this. And so what we're seeing here are elevations in arachidonic acid and the EPA ratio, so that's like the inflammatory to anti-inflammatory ratio, above. So they're just a little bit above, not too much. Then the basic omega-6, omega-3 still a little bit above. And you can see that their fish oils or their anti-inflammatory omega-3s are actually quite low, right? And they just repeat some of the same information. Arachidonic acid and linoleic acid are your omega-6 inflammatory pathways. You talked about prostaglandin 2 earlier, right? That's where these things come in. So everything she said about that is applicable here, right? So this was clearly an inflammatory person, right? I have all reason to believe that they're inflaming their body and their arteries. So all we did was give this person fish oils. They're like, I hate taking pills. I'm like, okay, you're low. Will you just take some fish oils? And they said, all right, I'll do it. Try it. And so we retested them. This was, I believe, between 2.5 and 3 months later. But they were taking a therapeutic dose. They were taking 3,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. So that comprised four of my pills. Right, which got them to about 3,200 actually. So they committed to that, and this is what it looked like after that. Everything fixed. Their linoleic acid was still a little bit high because they didn't cut out vegetable stuff, like oils completely. But yeah, I mean we managed to completely fix their ratios. So they're not going to clot. They're not going to they're going to start repairing their inflammatory lining on their vessels, right? Although the receptors are going to work better. This is great for sex hormone concept too, and thyroid hormones and all that stuff. So it's lovely when you can see it like that. And then just a basic recap of what we talked about. I think that the most important concepts here really are the highlighted ones. How inflamed are you? Because I could come here and talk to you guys about anything, and I'm still going to talk about inflammation. Right? And blood sugar's in there too. It's not what's in the particle, but what's the size of the particle, and how many of them are there. That's huge, and that's not ever looked at. Nitric oxide status, that's something that the clinician can decide if it's an issue or not, or if you want to be proactive, you just jump into it, but that's a biggie. And homocysteine levels, silent, deadly. You want to know about it if it's there. It's easy to fix generally. That's the good news about homocysteine. If you have a genetic trait that makes this the way it is, then you might have to be on it forever. Sorry. But sometimes you can just kind of correct some things and maybe find medications that are doing it, and then just, it can adjust. You don't need method support forever. Blood sugar's in there. And make sure you're physically active. There's some genetic concepts here that can be looked at. Sex hormones, that's the importance of a good intake, Clinician's gonna ask a lot of questions. So we wanna make sure that's not going on. And if there's any kind of chronic infections, if somebody is, for example, suffering a lot of heartburn all the time, they could very well have an H. pylori infection. That will then leave the stomach lining, enter the blood, infect your arteries, inflame them, attract plaque.
Gastric problems, that's serious in America.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a test for that, H. pylori?
Yeah, I find that the gut ones are best done with stool tests.
Stool test.
Not the funnest ones, but very, very enlightening.
We're starting to become more aware of gut health these days,
Oh, you bet. Yeah. Oh, no doubt about it.
and antibiotic, counter.
They're known to make a leaky gut. That's true. Yep. So I'm here on Thursdays, on Thursday mornings. So if anybody ever wants to schedule with me to go over these things, order some tests, I'm here for you at this location, roughly 9 to 1 on Thursdays. I do have my primary clinic down in San Diego, and we can certainly do something down there if you're there, or if the Thursday morning doesn't work. I'm available outside of this location as well. And so if that's the case, you can reach me directly and we'll make it right for everybody on the schedule. But certainly the front desk is there for you. So I said a lot. Anybody have any other things to ask? Or?
What about red yeast
Yeah.
that they're talking about
Yeah.
for cholesterol?
Yep, it is basically, it was the natural, called an herb, I guess, that they got statins from. It's basically sort of I would call it a weak statin in a way. But it doesn't, being a natural herb, it doesn't tend to come with quite the same side effects.
Does
So- so Western
there's
med-
benefits to it, taking it?
If you want to lower your cholesterol numbers, yes.
Okay.
But I haven't really seen it to be that impactful for the particle size or the inflammatory lining or the homocysteine, certainly not, So it's along that, I want to lower my cholesterol numbers. I would say the basic cholesterols can be an issue if they're high, because it tells us that you're cranking out a lot of particles. So even if it's not the actual stuff inside, it's telling us that there's a lot going on. And so if we can kind of slow some of that down a little bit while we're working on other stuff, while someone's really inflamed, then it's probably a good idea. But I don't like them on that forever. And red rice yeast will also deplete CoQ10. So take it both. Things like natto kinase, which is from the natto, the fermented soybean, which is disgusting. Most Americans can't eat it because it's so slimy and gross, but it has enzymes in it that break up plaque. So you can get that.
What's it called?
Natto, N-A-T-T-O, kinase. It's an enzyme that breaks up plaque.
How do you spell?
K-I-N-A-S-E.
What about
Nice and good. Kombucha,
Yeah.
the fermented
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah.
Great. I think it's good for all kinds of stuff. I don't know if it would directly impact cholesterol, but
How about probiotics in general?
great idea. Yeah, great idea. You bet. There's one last concept on supplements. There is, the bergamot fruit? It's a citrus, right? There's some new data out that has shown a lot of benefit for not just total numbers, but also particle size. And so there's a formula that I carry now called Bergamot BPF. And I just started using it, so I can't really tell you how great it works yet, but research looks great. Yeah.
Are you familiar with berberine and for blood sugar?
Berberine is one of those things that works for a lot of things. It's also very anti-H. pylori, for example. So yes, it can be anti-inflammatory in a lot of different ways. It's a good compound. Okay. Well, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.